Launch 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Mark Pukita's Truth Bomb. I'm Mark Pukita. We're living in trying times in Ohio, the United States, the world. We need truth. Between a completely hapless media and wild information online, it's really hard to get truth. Truth can get lost. We need truth. Between a completely hapless media and all that, we've got to fix it. We've got to fix truth, and that's why I'm running for the U.S. Senate. We have two big themes in my campaign. One is to beat the swamp. The other is to leave it better than we found it, meaning Ohio. Let's tackle both here on Mark Pukita's Truth Bomb. I'm not a politician. I felt called to run against Rob Portman before he dropped out, before he quit. Why? Because he wasn't doing anything we sent him to Washington to do. I thought when I started running that our system was broken. What I found since I got into the race is it's 10 times as bad as I ever thought it would be. It is just an absolute codependent cesspool of corruption. It's character-free. Nobody has character. The people in this business are caricatures across the political class, whether it be local, state, or federal government. It's just awful. And so we're going to tell it like it is here on Mark Pukita's Truth Bomb. With me tonight and going forward will be Chris Hicks. Chris is as committed to telling the truth as I am. And Chris is going to be my sidekick throughout all these episodes until I have to fire him for dropping too many F-bombs or something like that. He's going to help keep us focused and get guests and make sure that we stay on truth and on track. So, Chris, how are you today?
Hey, Mark, I'm doing fantastic. And I'm responsible for the delay getting started here, folks. So I apologize.
I would never say that.
It's our first time. We're waiting for that. Mark and I were joking about the hot mic moments to come and the letdowns, and sometimes we're going to mess it up. But one of the things I've gotten to know, I just like to tell everybody that's on, I've gotten to know Mark Pukita just over the last, 4 months, 5 months, maybe longer than that now, Mark.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, Mark is like me. We make mistakes. Sometimes we don't get the live stream working right. But he's an authentic guy, and it's exactly the kind of person we need as our next U.S. Senator. If you're like me, you are absolutely sick to death of these stereotypical caricatures that we have in running for these offices. And when you get involved, you learn so much about it. So, Mark, why don't you just real quick mention what we're going to cover tonight?
So tonight, we're going to cover corruption in the Ohio Republican Party. That'll be topic 1. Topic 2 will be the Center for Christian Virtue, which is anything but, and about how we got shut out of a Senate forum there. And then the third segment will be a really, really interesting and important announcement about what we're going to call our State Central Committee program. And then if we have time, Chris, we'll talk about a campaign update on our campaign.
And then we might freeform a little bit. And I have a surprise for you at the end, Mark. So I have a surprise that you don't even know about.
Oh, I love surprises, Chris. You know me.
It depends on the surprise, doesn't it? So,
I love any surprise, Chris.
So with that, let's get into segment 1, which is going to be about Ohio Republican Party corruption. So I'm going to play a clip from the September Ohio Republican Party meeting in Columbus. And then we're going to bring on two guest State Central Committee members to talk about what's been going on at our lovely Ohio Republican Party, the paragon of virtue that we all know it is. But let's take a listen to what happened at one of the things. And I think, Mark, on your site, there's the whole meeting and so forth for this, but just one of the things that happened during the Ohio Republican Party State Central Committee meeting in September. These are the people that govern the overall Republican Party for Ohio.
Thank you, Jim. Well, Mark,
let me just tell you that there is a cover-up going on, and all of us have fiduciary responsibility related to making sure that we are not personally liable for these errors that are going on. And the board here is not performing its fiduciary responsibility. That's why we haven't had an audit for 16 or 20 years, even though the bylaws require an annual examination of the financial statements.
So I'm going to bring on two State Central Committee guests we have with us tonight, Mark, which is Joanne Campbell and Laura Rosenberger. Joanne, I think you're from, I put it in here, you are from District, no, Laura is from District 10, and Joanne Campbell is from District 22. But what we're going to talk about here is Ohio Republican Party corrupt finances and corruption in the party. So how are you ladies doing tonight?
Great. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Mark, for providing this format for people to speak the truth.
So help us when we jump in here. Mark and I were at the meeting. What's it all about? That gentleman's name is Mark Bainbridge. He's a member of the State Central Committee who was speaking. But why is he so upset? How could he possibly be upset when we know that Republicans stand for nothing but virtue?
Yeah, Joanne and I were both at that meeting, and it was one of the most explosive parts of the meeting at that meeting, and that's Mark Bainbridge, and he is a retired CPA with one of the big firms, Ernst & Young, and he also served on the Ohio Association of CPAs on the ethics board for that. So Mark has a very strong opinion and a very strong dedication to the truth. It must come with a name, Mark.
So, but just for time here, Laura, what's the issue? Why is that man so upset?
Why is that man so upset? Well, because he's been analyzing the balance sheets since 2017, and there are some very highly unusual things going on with those balance sheets that are not up to snuff. They're not in compliance.
Like what?
With generally accepted accounting principles. Well, in 2017, there was a $1.7 million write-off in equity. And then again in 2019, there was a $436,000 write-off in equity. And so decreases in equity are not, really a good thing. They're very unusual. And to put them in retained earnings and it means the balance sheets are just not balancing right. And
so Joanne, what
in several other years, the equity isn't even there. So this means that the balance sheets aren't even being generated properly by QuickBooks. They're manually putting in every line.
Okay, so Joanne,
with QuickBooks, you've got it generated automatically.
Okay, I got it, Laura. So we're going to give Joanne a chance to talk also. So Joanne, as a member also, I asked Laura the question, what's that man so upset about? Laura gave a technical description. Can you put that in layman's terms of what's that man so upset about?
He's upset because we haven't had an audit in a very long time. There are very egregious discrepancies within our books. And the most disturbing part is that, at least for me personally, was when our own chairman would not even allow the audit and fiscal review committees to meet over this and talk about these discrepancies, like the $640,000 write-off that he made without telling anybody or getting approval, and other things. So the fact that he, even though these things occurred before his time in office, he continues to kind of sweep it under the rug and will not allow us to talk about these things. And we're supposed to be the governing board. It's upside down, in essence.
Okay. So can you highlight, I saw an article in the paper, maybe Joanne, can you highlight what, I saw a thing about property tax bills not unpaid. I think I've heard something about an SEC fine that not a lot of us knew about, or an FEC, Federal Elections Commission fine. Beyond what Laura raised as to the equity issues, some of the other things that are going on or that have come up.
Sure. Some of the most disturbing things were the fact that he's been doling out money, direct expenditures, in-kind contributions to various campaigns without the endorsement approval of our committee. We've since told him to stop, cease and desist with that, but I believe it continues to this day. So he's violating bylaws. He's working unilaterally and without any oversight from us, the governing board.
Okay. So Mark, you were at the this meeting that took place. So you firsthand seen what's happened. Yeah. Now, Joanne and Laura are very personally involved with it as part of the malcontents. What was your impression, or what kind of is your thought process around what you've seen at these meetings, specifically around the financial irregularities issues?
So, Chris, I've seen copies of these financial statements, and while I'm not a CPA like Mark Bainbridge, and I'm not a public accounting audit partner, I've been reading financial statements for 30 years. And these statements, immediately, the issues jump out at you. And it's a $2 million issue, so it's not like it's rounding error. And what I heard were explanations from Bob Paduchik, as well as Dave Johnson, the treasurer of the Ohio Republican Party, that were absolutely absurd. They were lies. They literally each stood there for 20 minutes apiece and just lied about what's going on. Listen, the bylaws for the ORP say the ORP books, the Ohio Republican Party books, should be audited every year. There hasn't been an audit for 16 years. And Bob Paduchik, the chairman of the party, is fighting hammer and tong to keep those audits from being done. Now, I'm not suggesting that anybody put money in their pocket, but I think the voters would like to see where that money went. I believe it went inappropriately to candidates, but who knows? We need an audit to tell us, an outside independent audit. And it was a very cold room. 80% of those people there don't care about honesty, from my opinion, maybe more. They're Mike DeWine sycophants. They love just going along to get along. And the poor malcontents, as Bob Paduchik has called them, Laura Rosenberger, Joanne Campbell, Joe Miller, and others are just pariahs, even though all they're looking for is truth and honesty. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace to be a Republican in Ohio, because clearly this is one of the most, if not the most, corrupt state Republican parties in the country.
Well,
and by the way,
we have to get to the point where we treat the party like we would any other nonprofit or organization that is beholden to standards. We are 527. We're a political party, but we're 527. That doesn't mean we can, ignore the standards and just do this stuff. We need to hold our organizations to standards like we would any other cultural institution.
Laura, your connection is really bad. So just try to, I guess, speak up a little bit.
what I was saying is that, can you hear me now? Is that
Go
better?
ahead.
Okay, was that it's time we treated this organization just like we would any institution, any other non-profit or cultural institution, with accounting standards that are acceptable and balance sheets that balance, audit every year like we're supposed to. And I was on the audit committee, and I've never seen anything like it before in my entire life. We should be having audits every year, and if it weren't for Mark Bainbridge, we wouldn't even come close to having an audit last year. He really had to Jim Timken into it. It didn't happen because of conflicts of interest, and the whole thing was just not handled properly. But we should be examining the treasurer's books every year and having an audit every year. And our balance sheets should be generated by QuickBooks, not manually plugged in.
Okay.
It's ridiculous.
All right. So let me, by the way, I see some of the comments here, and I'm going to throw up, and I don't know the context that like this comment is meant, but it says, so basically you're saying you know how to read pay stubs. Thanks for clarifying. Got it. I think that kind of came in, Mark, when you were talking. I've personally been involved. We can do a report maybe in the next, I'll take some Ohio Election Commission video and talk about pay stubs of people working for the ORP, but I don't think you were talking about looking at pay stubs of people. I think that this is much more serious.
No.
But there are a lot of pay stub issues of resources not being properly reported and not being in-kinded, and I've personally been involved with them.
Right.
And I think I told Laura, you and Joanne about some of them. But one of the things that we got to fight here on a truth bomb is to not belittle the importance of a multi-million-dollar organization having faithful financial reporting and its leadership putting real value on faithful financial reporting. If a regular business did this, in which you were a shareholder and we're asked to be contributors of, this would not fly. This would not be acceptable to anybody. So I'm going to put up, I want to finish out this segment, but I'm going to put up a graphic here, because what precipitated, I went, you know, maybe Joanne, I'll ask you to talk some about what happened after this all came to fore in terms of, I saw in the paper that the ORP, when this problem with the property taxes came up, that they are redoubling their efforts on transparency, which I got a chuckle out of because I knew that behind the scenes, something very different was happening. And I put up a graphic here. Joanne, could you address what happened with the malcontents and the people who are actually fighting for transparency shortly after the September meeting?
Right. Well, absolutely. Well, first of all, we were completely shut down. Our chairman did not acknowledge the fact that we had a lot of amended resolutions that we wanted to bring to the floor. He just completely ignored us. But after that September 10th meeting, we, the malcontents, myself and Laura and Mark and others, were kicked off of our committees. And I'm not on any committee. I used to be on the Endorsement Policy Review Committee. Laura was on the Audit Committee, a standing committee that only has 3 members. Mark was on the Fiscal Review, as well as Denise Verdi. And so it was very troubling that he did that. I've spoken with Bob at one time, I did, and he told me that that was something he was considering, but would definitely have input with the rest of the board. That absolutely did not occur. He kicked us off, and I believe that it was because he didn't want to hear anything from us, and he was punishing us for our inquisitiveness.
Well, I think it's pretty well known, too, that the favored children of the insiders are Mike DeWine and Jane Timken. And obviously, any financial irregularities cast a shadow over Jane Timken's stewardship of the party as well. And do you think that it's just, I don't know, do you think that, to what degree do you think that any of that plays a role with endorsements coming up and an election season going on?
Well, I've certainly heard that from the very beginning. Bob Pajuchik, I believe, was just placed in that position. He was, we tried to, get some debate going and some vetting process with other chairman, you know, to get into that position. But I had heard that he was there particularly to get DeWine and Jane Timken elected. So that is certainly the rumor.
Okay. So you guys, I want to thank you guys for coming on with us and talking about these important issues. And I think for the people that had the comment about the pay stubs, I'm glad to talk about pay stubs with some actual stuff that's come up in the Ohio Election Committee about resources that were working without being reported and resources that weren't being properly in kind, which is a whole separate thing from the millions of dollars that are missing over the years. And I feel like sometimes in the political world that there's politician types like to have crimes that can never be solved. And it's intentional at times to be unclear, vague, and to actually have systems in place that do not have adequate checks and balances, because then nobody can really be held accountable. And, you know, about people putting money in their pocket, all I know is the former chair before Timken is under federal indictment right now, Matt Borges. So not everything is
roses, so to speak.
Roses and so before we let Joanne and Laura go, Mark, do you have any closing thought that you'd like to make about what you'd like to see happen with the ORP? And I know it's or how you feel like it's helping your popularity with Bob Paduchek by being an outspoken advocate for reform in the Ohio Party.
My popularity with Bob Paduchek. The interesting thing is I used to go to church with him, right? So I know Bob. He wouldn't acknowledge that right now, but I've got to say that Joanne and Laura are just warriors, because they are, you know, 2 of 3 or 4 or 5 people out of 66 that are fighting this, what I would call DeWine tsunami of corruption. And this started under Borges, was hidden by Jane Timken, who had an audit report from an outside company in 2017, where they said, and I've got a copy of it, that controls needed to be put in place, that there was basically, they were an out of control organization. She did nothing about it, kicked the can to Paduchek, and now Paduchek and Johnson are just lying through their teeth about it. And Joanne and Laura are 2 of the literally heroes that are bringing attention to this. And we, because of them, and our platform as a campaign, we're able to get more and more grassroots Republican voters to understand that there's an issue here, because it's been hidden and the press is saying absolutely nothing about it, because I consider them co-conspirators with the swamp, no matter whether it's Republican or Democrat. They love the status quo. They love this corruption. They just don't care about it.
So we're going to come back to this, but I want to put this up just before we end this segment. And thank you, Laura and Joanne, for being here with us. I'm going to just remind people that the next State Central Committee meeting, which is an open meeting, is on Friday, December 3rd. Friday, December 3rd. They have a Christmas party on December 2nd. My experience is you could always buy tickets to the Christmas party or come to the Christmas party, but we'll come back and talk about the Christmas party in a little bit when we talk at the end of the broadcast about the State Central Committee and Mark's program he's going to put in place. What do you say, Mark? We move on to segment 2, which is the Center for Christian Virtue, and let's get it going with this. I just get a tingle when I see that. So they said the Center for Christian Virtue used to be called the CCV, Citizens for Community Values. So, Mark, why don't you just give a little? We're going to play a video here in a second.
Right.
And we're going to talk about what happened, but everybody knows they had a forum for Senate candidates on October 24th, I believe it was.
Right.
And we are going to talk about that. But why don't you talk about kind of just a quick history of what happened with you in the Center for Christian Virtue? I know you're a good Christian man, so I'm sure it was all good.
I am. So we heard about this event months ago, And we started contacting CCV, because the Center for Christian Virtue, because we weren't invited, and we called and we emailed and we texted and we had other people calling. And then finally I ran into Aaron Baer, their president, at a protest after speaking at the Ohio Board of Education. And it was like he was shocked that I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, what's going on with this?" And he said, "Listen, I will be getting you a memo for qualification criteria." And it took like over a week for that memo. And basically they rigged the game. They wouldn't allow us in, Chris. They gave us the information at the last minute before the FEC reporting cutoff on September 30th. So we didn't get in. And that was rigged, because I believe they just didn't want us to be there, because we're an anti-establishment protest kind of campaign fighting the corruption in the Ohio Republican Party. And they pretty much live off of it. So that's the story. If you'd like more, I can tell you about the sponsorship and all the rest. But let me know how far you'd like me to go.
Well, we'll talk. So just so people have a flavor, and I'll break it down, is you basically got omitted. A lot of people know that you got omitted. You get treated very unfairly by a lot of these organizations.
Right.
Because they don't like to have a person that comes in and criticizes corruption in the ORP,
right,
and criticizes, who's another person that you criticize?
Mike DeWine, Rob Portman. I mean, we go down the list. Yeah.
Right. So you're the only candidate to have entered the field running against Rob Portman before he dropped out. All these other people were good with Rob Portman. We'll play a video next time with Jane Timken talking about how important it is to get Rob Portman reelected. I think it was in December of last year.
Right.
Before he had dropped out. So,
right.
But you got told, there's a criteria. You didn't make the criteria, and you got given a memo that said why you didn't make the criteria, and the criteria were all financial.
Right.
And you could have made the criteria. Had you known the criteria, you could have, because politicians can just move money around between accounts.
Right.
It had to do with how much money's in your account, this kind of stuff.
So I would have moved $1 million as a loan into my federal, election commission account, my campaign account. And then they only gave us a few days to do that. You don't just move $1 million over a weekend. It just doesn't happen. So they did it intentionally, but you can tell the rest of the story.
Well, but they never gave you the memo till like over a month, basically a month later, but the memo that you had been disqualified on. Yeah. But here's what happened is why don't you talk about then, Mark, the Center for Christian Virtue, you then, because we're tenacious campaign and a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun. We screw up, and I'm going to get fired for a hot mic moment at some point in time. Right.
And we get mad at each other.
We had a, so what we did was then, what did we do? You get blocked out of the event. You can't be on the stage. So what do we do in our innovative campaign?
Well, in our innovative campaign, thanks to you, Chris, you said, let's buy a sponsorship. So we bought a sponsorship, and that sponsorship gave us 3 ads on the radio during this forum. It gave us an ad in the handout, the program, and it also gave us a table where we could be at the event handing out our nifty bats and our policy cards and our other trinkets, which have been voted the best of any Senate candidate, by the way, Chris.
Right. So
so we were going to be there letting people know, that we were a viable campaign and that what our policies were.
So on Friday, the 22nd, I was having dinner with a friend of mine, and I get an email at 5:31 p.m. The forum's on the 22nd. On the 24th.
Forum's on 24th.
5:31 p.m. on the 22nd, I get an email that Mark Pukita's sponsorship has been canceled in its entirety because Mark Pukita is an anti-Semite. But we're going to come back to that. It's not quite that way, but we're going to come back to the nonsense. These guys are just dirtbags.
Right.
And so at the event, we still went. We were very peaceful. I'm very much for let's make the point, but not break any rules. So we're like, well, we're going to show up and we're going to try to get the benefits of the sponsorship that we have funded and the contract that we have with you. And so when that happened, we went in, we're ready to set up our booth, and they had it all preset. They knew we were going to come. We had told them what we were going to do. No surprises. I love having no real surprises. But John Hart, their attorney, met us, was there to meet us. And so we talk about how our sponsors have been canceled. But then I started asking about this August 15th letter. Because here's the funny thing is, Mark, you're a tech exec. I'm a tech guy. We both worked at IBM at some point in our lives.
Yep.
You know about something that's on a file that they send you that is called metadata. And what does metadata tell you?
So metadata, Chris, tells you when the document was created and then when the document, the history of the document at a very high level, right? It doesn't, not what's in the document. It might be the number of words, but not the actual text.
Right. So we found out the document was made the same day they gave it. The underlying Word document was made the same day they gave it to Mark, not a month or more than a month earlier on August 15th. So I asked John Hart, their attorney, about this whole thing. And here is his response. It might be a little hard to hear at times, but listen to me asking about this letter. He wrote the memo. It's his memo, has his name on it. And so
dated August 15th.
Dated August 15th. So I just asked him, was it authentic? Here we go. Are you willing to say that that memo was in no way altered and that that date of August 15th at the top of it was the way it was on August 15th?
There's things coming.
So you're not willing to commit that. You're a Christian man and you're not willing to commit that the date on the memo with your name on it is the legitimate date that memo was created.
We're going to have other ways to help the others who are qualified to be here. Who are here.
So I think you're answering my question. Is that memo was tampered with after August 15th, right?
It's a familiar way of trying to.
I asked you a simple question. There's a memo that had August 15th as the date with your name on it. It's your memo, and you won't tell me that it was actually done on August 15th? John, that's not a Christian man. That's not a Christian man that won't even testify to when his own memo was written with his name on it.
Not every question. Where's your phone? So I have disappointment.
So I think
there's time and place.
So you won't stand here right now. You won't say that memo was actually from August 15th. I think you've answered that question. So that was just, if you couldn't hear that, it's a little hard to hear, but that is him repeatedly refusing to answer whether the memo that said August 15th that he wrote supposedly was actually from August 15th. And this is by the way, he's also connected with Cedarville, which I've known as being a respected Christian university, but I don't know if this is the kind of thing. Apparently there's the lawyer ethics and the Christian ethics, and sometimes they get confused when you're coming up with your fake memos to try to block Mark Pukita out of your event. So Mark, what was your reaction to when you saw that? You weren't at this event. I did it with Sam, your sidekick. We were there to set up and everything. And what was your reaction when you saw this video to how this guy behaved?
Well, I mean, Chris, just to put it the way most people would put it, this guy's a scumbag, right? So he's a liar. We know he wouldn't approve. He wouldn't commit to the fact that the document that was dated August 15th with his signature on it was actually penned on August 15th, because we have him dead to rights. We know it was done that day on September 27th. And he's representing an organization called the Center for Christian Virtue. That's not Christian behavior. It's not virtuous behavior. This guy should be ashamed of himself.
Now, when they said your sponsorship was revoked, they cited one of your radio ads, and Salem Media was their radio partner for this event. And they cited that because were offended by one of your radio ads, your sponsorship was immediately revoked.
Right.
I'm going to play your radio ads real quick here. And so we'll get to the controversial one in a second. And so here's the first of the 3 radio ads that Mark Pukita had that actually were, if you listen to this, they were actually on the radio, which we'll talk about in a second.
Are you still listening to that candidate forum with Richie Rich, P.T. Barnum, The Princess, and Mr. Hollywood?
What?
You know, Gibbons, Mandel, Timken, and Vance.
Yeah, I am so sick of these swamp rhinos.
Have you checked out Pukita? He's not a swamp rhino.
Who?
Mark Pukita. Check him out at markforohio.com. That's Mark, the number 4, Ohio.com.
I'm Mark Pukita, candidate for U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
So that was your first ad, and I think it was actually an excellent ad because it pointed out that there's a lot of swamp rhinos in the field.
Right.
And then the second ad, which gets in a little bit on some of the other candidates that weren't mentioned in the first ad. So let's play that one for you here, Mark, and then
So
we'll get
how
to the
can we take
controversy one.
Vance seriously? He was a never Trumper.
Right? How about Timken, who was praising Governor DeWine and his lockdowns in January?
And Moreno, who said Trump was a lunatic invading the party.
Well, I'm voting for Mark Pukita. He's authentic and has real policy.
Oh, I agree. I checked him out at mark4ohio.com. That's mark4ohio.com.
I'm Mark Pukita, candidate for U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
All right, so those ads are edgy. I think they're actually excellent ads to point up the differences and paint distinctions between you. And so now here's the ad that they claimed was the over-the-top ad that was the basis for revoking your sponsorship. But by the way, remember, Salem Media still ran these ads. So,
Yep.
So they had it. We'll talk about that in a second. But here's the ad that was supposedly the problem ad.
Are we seriously supposed to believe the most Christian values Senate candidate is Jewish? I am so sick of these phony caricatures.
Oh, I agree. If we keep electing people like this, we'll just keep getting the same terrible results.
I like Pukita. He's authentic, unlike these other people. You can learn more about him at mark4ohio.com. That's mark4ohio.com.
I'm Mark Pukita, candidate for U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
All right, so that was the ad that pointed out Josh Mandel, and which I don't know how many people on this call, have gone to Josh Mandel events and so forth. But Mark, kind of what was the inspiration for that commercial and for kind of calling out Josh Mandel there as a phony?
Well, Chris, as you know, because we've been to some of his events, Josh is running his campaign out of evangelical Christian churches, even though he's an Orthodox Jew. And it's funny because he talks about making decisions in Washington with the Bible in one hand and the Constitution in the other. And it really should be, I think, the Torah in one hand and the Bible in the other, or whatever book you've kind of sworn your soul to in terms of your religion. For example, if I went into a mosque and I said that I believe fervently in Islam, I would be looked at as a fraud, right? Because I'm a Christian. I haven't converted to the Islamic faith. Yet Josh seems to get away with it. And I just can't understand that, right? The same would be true if I went into a synagogue or a temple or a Buddhist house of prayer. I mean, it's stunning to me that people would fall for these fake caricatures.
Well, let me play just real quick. This is actually from his closing remarks at the CCV forum. Okay, so this is actually part of his closing comments.
When I go to Washington, I'm not going to listen to the Republican leaders. I'm going to use two documents as my guide. The Bible in one hand and the Constitution in the other.
Now, nothing wrong. I'm a Christian. Nothing wrong with that. But it just is odd that he has this thing. And I'm going to put some up. We're going to go the controversy here all the way because, it's not anti-Semitic to point out that a person who is Jewish is Jewish. That's not, it's insane. But we're going to come back.
My best friend, 45 years, is Jewish, Charlie Solomon.
And it's the bizarre behavior of like a Pentecostal revival type campaign, when it's kind of like what's the liberals call it, like cultural appropriation or something like this, like religious appropriation. And it just seems odd because if you really believed, and I'm going to put this up here and I'll take responsibility, Mark, if it blows back on you, but if you really believe that that this is the in these things, well, then we all know what the Bible says in John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. And then it goes on, whoever believes in him is, for God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Whoever believes in him is not condemned, but whoever does not believe stands condemned already because they have not believed in the name of God's one and only Son. And I wanted to throw that up there, just because it's to me, and I would like to hear you talk about it, Mark, is if Josh is so into the Bible and so into Christians, why doesn't Josh convert? Okay, so he believes, so he's going to govern with the Bible, but the number one key thing, I consider myself to be a passionate Christian. The number one key thing about being a Christian is that we are saved through acceptance of Jesus Christ as God's
our Lord
only
and
Son.
Savior. Right.
And that is the most fundamental teaching of Christianity to me. No
matter what
you're from, if you don't accept Jesus Christ as the Son of God, and your path to salvation, who died for your sins, it ain't happening for you. It just ain't going to happen.
The Bible is the word. We understand that. But that fundamental salvation comes from Jesus Christ dying 3 days in the tomb and rising again on our behalf. That's fundamental in Christianity. And it's stunning to me that people are okay with this. They give him a pass. And I think this is the problem with politics in general and Republican politics specifically. People tell us who they are by their actions and their words, yet we don't listen to them.
Right. And they're not held to account by the press. I mean, at risk of my hot mic moment that gets me fired, is if Josh were an evangelical Pentecostal Christian and campaigning the way he is, the press would call him out more than they do now.
Correct.
Right. But it's weird. And I actually would encourage people to go to a Josh event if you've not been to a Josh event. Go to one of these Baptist church events that he does and just see what goes on, kind of what the tenor is. But it's just a very interesting, bizarre thing to me. And I appreciate, because I think that we've got to call out, and I think the main purpose of the ad, I think you're I know I am an unbelievable supporter of Israel, an unbelievable supporter of peaceful pluralism of religions. Religious freedom is a key foundation of our country. But this is about facades, phonies, caricatures that sell us this bill of goods and then end up being Rob Portman 2.0, which I know you have a commitment to not be Rob Portman 2.0. Or are you thinking about becoming Rob Portman 2.0 at this point?
Oh, Chris, you know me. I would commit Harry Carey before I would be Rob Portman 2.0. That's just not going to happen, right? It's just not going to happen.
So the CCV, Center for Christian Virtue, they have another debate coming up. I'm sure they'll try to control who can be in there. Hugh Hewitt should be ashamed of himself. Now, but Hugh Hewitt, let's think about Hugh Hewitt. He's the guy that he was the moderator. Donald Trump capped on him. Hugh Hewitt took the liberty of flying in from California to host a forum in Ohio.
Sure, he was well paid for that.
Behind.
Yeah, and on top of that, Chris, he started out saying that all of these people were vying to replace Rob Portman, an incredible statesman who Hugh Hewitt thinks is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
You have a line that you say about Rob Portman is do you remember the line you say about Rob Portman? Or you say it all the time. So
yeah, I said we sent him to Washington and he hasn't done a single thing we sent him there to do. Not a single thing. He's just a turncoat. He rolled over. He's a member of the swamp, and he's okay with it. He's okay with it.
So why don't we, just for sake of time here, we got a late start. We're running a little long. We're going to try to tighten it up the next time. But why don't we jump into segment 3?
Right.
So in segment 3, what we want to talk about is the State Central Committee and your experience. You were at the event. Was that the only State Central Committee meeting you've ever been at?
Yep. Won't be the last, but that was the first live event I've been to.
So since you're new to the political world, being that you've been a great business success, and God forbid we have actual people that have
accomplished something.
So we want
created
people
jobs,
that, are like these, these caricatures. You've probably learned a lot about the political process just in the last 6 months of both central committees at the county level and then also at the state level. So maybe just educate people a little bit of what is the State Central Committee and what do they do?
Okay, so the State Central Committee is basically the governing body, the elected governing body for the Republican Party in a state, in this case, Ohio. There are 66 members. They come in pairs, 2 from each Senate district in Ohio, 1 male, 1 female. And they're elected in off presidential election years. So we have an election of state central committee members next May 3rd during the primary. And everybody has voted for these people, or they've had the opportunity to vote for them, but they're way down at the bottom of the ballot. And you probably look at the slate card and you decide, hey, I'm going to vote for these people. As it turns out, these people have become extremely important in terms of covering up the corruption in the Republican Party, because many of them are almost DeWine appointees, and they just go along to get along. They're not representing voters. It's this top-down, we're going to tell voters what to do attitude versus having voters tell them what to do and they go represent the voters.
So there's 2 things. There's county central committees and there's state central committee. And they're 2 separate things. They're elected. Most all state central committee members get elected to county central committees, but that's a separate thing they get elected to.
Right.
We'll talk about that. They appear on the ballot. You vote on them. I'm going to blow this up full screen just so everybody can see all of it. There are 33 districts. They correspond to Senate districts. There's 66 members. There's a male and female from each district. They're elected in the primary. And for running for office, you only need 5 signatures on a petition to qualify to run for state central committee. And Laura and Joanne are members of the state central committee now and putting up a good fight for trying to reform. But we need more people to get involved. These are the qualifications of office from Frank LaRosa's qualification of office book. You need to live in the district you're running for, and you need to fill out a petition with 5 signatures. You have to file by 4 p.m. on February 2nd, 2022, which is 90 days before the primary election. And you can get this, and I'll probably go back and put some links in the live streams for this so you can go look at these documents yourself. But people need to get more aware of this, and we need to get more people to stand up. So Bob Paduchek and Dave Johnson and these swamp people know that we're watching them. We are watching them, and we are going to try to do something. What I think is very exciting, Mark, is you're actually going to do more than that, and you want to help.
Right.
And so I put up here, how you're going to help and what you're going to do. Why don't you talk about what you're planning to do? Kind of on that theme of leave it better than you found it that we talked about. You found that this is something that people like you that have some means need to help with, but go ahead and talk about what you plan to do.
So, Chris, I am so upset with having no representation for grassroots Republican voters on the state central committee. It's a rigged game. It's just a bunch of swamp rhinos. So we're going to target 10 to 15 districts, and we're going to do it in teams. So those 10 to 15 districts will end up having the majority of the members of the state central committee. We're going to take those 10 to 15 districts. They're going to be in teams of 2, a male and a female, right? We're going to get them to run as citizen candidates, and we're going to give them mail and other support. So we're going to pay for that out of my own personal pocket, not our campaign, my personal pocket. We are going to pay to promote them and get them elected to state central committee. So what we really need is people who say, I want to stand up and do it. You're going to have to be strong. You're going to have to understand the problems. You're going to have to be willing to speak out and, quite frankly, take a lot of slings and arrows like I am right now from the party. You've just got to think that the mission is more important than the effort. If you want to do it, you should find another person, if you can, to help build this team of a male and a female. So if you're female, find a guy. If you're a guy, find a female.
Like a square dance.
Exactly. Pick your partner round and round. And just email us at info@mark4ohio.com. That's info@mark4ohio.com. It's on the screen. And we'll start talking to you. We are going to vet these people. We want to make sure that the people we back have the highest probability of winning. We need people who are out of the mainstream establishment, nonsense, corrupt swamp, and who really want to make a change in the Ohio Republican Party. How did I do?
Okay. So I think that is a very exciting program that you're putting in place. And I think it's something that maybe there's some other people out there like you that have the means, that see how much this has all gone to crap, that wonder why it is. I just saw something today about Ron DeSantis, a bunch of anti-vaccine mandate bills and stuff like that and stuff in Florida, and why we have, Mark, this, maybe comment on, compare Ohio to Florida and
yeah, we've talked about this, right? So Florida, we have a bigger supermajority in our General Assembly right now than Ron DeSantis has in his state legislature. But because we have a feckless, weak, Democrat, cowardly, I might have to fire myself if I keep going, Chris. Mike DeWine, we get nothing done. And because Mike DeWine controls 80 to 90% of our feckless, cowardly General Assembly, they get nothing done. And when they do, it's so watered down that it's meaningless. Look at 248. He decided House Bill 248 wasn't going to get passed, and it didn't. Right? Bob Cupp just absolutely trashed that. Right. And that is because of the swamp and Mike DeWine and this feckless General Assembly we have.
Okay, so here's what I want to do, and I'm going to put this chart back up here, and then we're going to move on and close out the show and maybe talk for a couple of minutes of my surprise. We're going to do more of a campaign update on the next show. But the next meeting of the State Central Committee is Friday, December 3rd. Watch on Mark's Facebook page. Because you can go to this meeting, you can go attend the meeting and see how these swamp rhinos operate. The Christmas party is December 2nd. We're trying to find out if you're going to be able to buy tickets, or it's going to be a closed Saddam Hussein style event at this point, where only the chosen are allowed in the door. And
God, I think you just came up with a name for Bob Ducek.
Baghdad
Bob.
Baghdad Bob Batuchek. So, but any event, we're gonna get more information out, and Mark will put it out. And Mark, this is a little surprise for you because you haven't seen this, but I went and checked for information on this event on the official Republican Party of Ohio calendar, and I can't read this too good, but the official Republican Party for the state of Ohio calendar has 0 events.
It looks like it's
the entire month of December on their entire calendar. Okay, which is very similar to their November calendar, which also has 0 events on the Ohio Republican Party calendar. I bet you Ron DeSantis has some party events going on in Florida. I did go back, and it seems that after September, they quit having events. So we've shut down the Republican.
Yeah, that was a brutal meeting for them.
That's going on.
Yeah,
maybe we should submit some of your events to see if we can get them. There's a submit box here, but that's kind of what goes on here. And so let's go, because we're running short of time here. We're gonna do a little bit of what I call free form and talk about a few things relating to your campaign and kind of lump that together maybe for 3 or 4 minutes here, Mark, and then get done.
Cool.
Here. So let's go. Okay, so what if anything do you want to talk about here, Mark, on what's a hot topic for you?
I think the win for Republicans in Virginia. Okay. I think that was a big deal. And even with what we probably all know was probably considerable Democrat voter fraud there, it was still an overwhelming win for Republicans. And that's a big deal in Virginia. And I think it's a bellwether, and it's probably sent shivers down the spine of both Democrats and swamp Republicans, because the electorate is woken up. If you can wake up Virginia, Chris, I think you can wake up anything.
I just want to remind everyone too, though, that we as Republicans will take that victory, but we have to remember it was a close victory, right? Even with all the craziness going on, we have got to reach out and evangelize new people. And we were having a debate. I'll mention, Mark, just something is I'm part of the LGB FJB community. I'm coming out tonight. I'm part of the LGB FJB community.
Me too.
And we have a local club where I am, and we got talking about kids at football games screaming F Joe Biden. And some of the older people were concerned about this, was not, oh no, these kids can't be talking yelling like this. And I have to remind us that as we're older people, I'm 56. I know you're a little older than me, Mark, but that our vernacular is not the same as young people. And if we have a situation where young people at college football games are screaming FJB out, we got to thank the Lord that we have a way to get engaged with these people, because we can't accept that we got a miracle win in Virginia. And because frankly, we should have got like an unbelievable win in Virginia based on the gun issues in Virginia, the school issues. But, so it's a great victory, but we need to redouble our efforts at evangelizing people as well. I want to put up something, Mark, that I saw on your Facebook page relating to, we like to have fun. You like to have fun with some of your competition. And what exactly is this? So that fine gentleman up at the top, who's a nice guy, Mike Gibbons, and Jeb Bush, a couple governors ago in Florida. And what's that all about? $10 million in Jeb 2016. What's kind of give me the lowdown on that?
So Mike is one of my opponents. I know Mike. He just appears to not have much passion or energy about this campaign. And he appears to be letting his money do the work for him. In other words, while I'm going out to events 2 or 3 a day at times, Mike seems to be putting ads up around the state and thinking that they're going to do the job for him. I don't think that that's going to work, but that's his strategy. Who am I to question his strategy? I'm sure he questions mine, but he just doesn't seem to have the passion. It's almost like some events we're at, it's like he's falling asleep. He just wants to be out of there.
And speaking of that, here is a picture of Mr. Gibbons at an event, sitting there. And I don't it's good-natured fun here. We're not meaning to be brutal on people, and I would love to see these people. I challenge your opposition to show pictures of you asleep. If anything, they're going to show you being doing too many things.
No, they're going to show me from the back my bald head.
All at one time, and versus asleep at an event.
Or my bald head, Chris.
So or the bald head leaning into the camera thing.
Right.
So that's.
But I'm fine with that. We got to have a little fun.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to have more fun. Maybe we'll leave more time next time for just free forming about what's going on with the campaigns. And I do have a surprise, and I've seen some comments that people coming by here about, yes, we're going to have criteria for State Central Committee. We'll have, when we do it too, we'll have education. We'll invite people to education as to how it works, how you get involved, and all that kind of stuff. Because we've got to change this. Maybe we even do that, Mark, for central committees or just county central committees.
Oh, yeah.
At least they're all different. So they're all different, but everybody to have an understanding, because people don't realize how important these things are and how freaking full of swamp rhinos a lot of them are. I saw some comments from people that, that have been involved in the committee, the committees that know that, your outsider types that know that, and they fight the good fight. And I think people need somebody like you to help them.
Chris,
all right.
Why don't you explain that LGB FJB coming out? Some people are confused.
Brandon F. Joe Biden.
Yeah. Let's go Brandon F. Joe Biden.
We're part of the LGB FJB community, and we're proud of it.
Don't worry. Don't worry. There's only 2 sexes, and gender is not true.
Hey, we don't. You know what's funny too is I think that I'm like you, is that we live in a free country and people can do what they want. Okay. If you want to wear a mask, if you don't want to wear a mask, if you want to get vaxxed, if you don't want to get vaxxed, if you want to be dressed this way or this way, that's your, you do whatever you want type of thing. And And I think you're good with that. I'm good with that. We're not good with the forcing things on people, like forcing you to get a vax, forcing you to wear a mask, forcing you to do this. Is that a pretty good characterization of your views?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I totally agree with that. If you want to be vaxxed, great. Don't expect me to be vaxxed. Or if I want to wear a mask and you don't expect me. Let's all just do our own thing like we have for 200 years.
So I'm going to close us out with a few things. I'm going to hold up here. And I'm going to put myself full screen here, Mark, so everybody can see this. This is a world famous Mark Pukita wooden mini bat. That's a prized possession at campaign events. It comes with this literature card. It's a real mini bat, so you can have fun with it around your house. And so that's a world famous Mark Pukita mini bat. And we are, what we're going to do that's very exciting. And Mark, this is the surprise for you. For the kids and so people, we now have the soon to be world famous.
Oh my gosh.
Blow up mini bat. So this is a lot. I hit my caps lock here or something on my keyboard here. So with the bat. So I'm very glad I hit the keyboard with a rubber mini bat. So these are going to be available to people.
Those are awesome.
Watch online. You kind of got to go to an event to get a Mark Pukita wooden mini bat, and we don't have we don't give them to everybody, and we have limited supplies. But now we've got the blow up mini bats also for your own home use and enjoyment. We don't advocate violence. We're not advocating violence. We're just pointing out. And so another thing that I want to highlight real quick, Mark, is you have this fantastic policy card.
Oh, yeah.
That is where your stances are on 21 policy areas, that is not to be confused with your focus areas of 7 big things.
Right.
7 big things that you're focused on. But if you care about entitlement programs, there's an area. That's area number 19. Taxes is area number 12. Law and order is number 2. Business and trade issues is number 8. Jobs and opportunities number 7. So I challenge I don't think you even care, Mark. Your competition can steal your ideas because we need to get a senator in there that actually does shit.
Right.
And stands for something. So that's that. And then what am I hitting on now? Is the rubber mini bats, that card, and the card that I held up that has the 7 focus items on it. This is the new must-have Mark Pukita giveaway that's going to be available shortly, and we're going to tell people how they can get them through the mail also. And upcoming events. Well, let's Mark. Why don't you talk about upcoming events, particularly what's going on Thursday?
Sure. So Thursday, we've got a Senate forum here in Columbus held by the Ohio Press Network and Jack Windsor, for those of you who know him. That's at the North Columbus Baptist Church. And then we've got a pizza party after that. So if you come to the event and you want a little pizza and you want to talk and ask some questions, we'll get you information on where that is. Wednesday at noon, we have a weekly Zoom town hall where you can get yourself and your friends to meet me and ask questions, and it's one-on-one and there are no holes barred. And then this weekend we've got events up in Cleveland and in Mount Vernon. So Saturday we're in Cleveland in the morning, or Lorraine at the tea party there, and on Saturday we're at a faith event in Mount Vernon. So that kind of rounds out the week for us, Chris.
And I know we're going over here, but we're way over, but I'm just going to pull up here for people and I'm going to share it. If people haven't gone to your website, let me throw this up to share here, let me hit it here. Okay, there we go. So I'm putting up on the screen your website right now. And so Mark has an excellent website and events. When he just talked about events, you can come and he's got a very nice event function. You can.
Chris, why don't you pull up Friday, because I forgot about the pizza party we're having with John Adams and Neil Peterson. There you go.
Okay, that's
Pizza with Pukita and friends on
so
Friday.
You can go out and see events that Mark's doing. There's a new function for request Mark to come to an event. If you want Mark to be at an event with you, The policy guide, the 21 area policy guide that I showed, that is available online. So you can come and take a look at where Mark stands on different issues. And next time, you want to get a paper copy of the policy guide because it's fun, and you can go take it to JD Vance and ask him where his version is. You can also download a copy of the policy guide here to share with your friends. Mark has a really nice, I think, really nice work being done to help with things. And there is, of course, a donate button, and so that you can give to Mark's campaign. And so all of that is there. There's also a press room function that tells you what, things that are going on with Mark's campaign. We try to do better and better. And, we're getting there one step at a time, but what can you say? It's kind of like this. It's kind of like this podcast, this live stream, Mark, this was our first try. We went I got a little bit delayed at the beginning. That was because it wasn't streaming right on YouTube, and I wanted to get that fixed right before we went live. So I apologize to people that waited. And we went over here. I'm looking at, we're at an hour and 9 minutes. Says, oh, it's grueling. It's terrible. We totally effed it up. It was a mess doing this because we went over. But, I didn't tune into JD Vance's live stream tonight, or Jane Timpkins, or all these stalwarts that know how to do it and how to get in touch with the people. Only Mark Pukita can do it, and we'll take the chance on trying to do it. And we'll be back next Monday. Will be another one at 7 o'clock.
Every Monday.
And then we'll see what happens. We might have some impromptu things as we go. Mark's going to be doing some impromptu things from the RV as we go as well. But thank you all for tuning in. Mark, why don't you take us out with a closing thought on this event in your campaign?
Well, I think this is just another example, Chris, of what we're trying to do to change the way that politics works in Ohio, that we have citizen candidates like me and others that use technology and creativity, entrepreneurial business kind of strategies to change the complexion of a race, change the viability of candidates that don't have the backing of the party, that aren't insiders, that aren't swamp people, that aren't rhinos, that just want to go to Washington or to Columbus and serve, not prosper. And I think the only way we're going to do it is by doing creative things like this. And I've got to thank you, Chris, and your lovely wife, BJ, who is an amazing graphic artist, for putting this all together, both technically and aesthetically. It's amazing. And I want to thank all the people who took the time to spend an hour with us. It's truly humbling to me. I'm honored that they did it. And I'm humbled by the fact that we're getting the kind of traction that we are. I'm just like everybody else. I just want to go protect the future for my grandchildren, people's children, and their grandchildren. This is the greatest country on the earth. We're the least racist, we're the most generous, we're the most compassionate, we're the last stand between where we are with freedom and liberty and tyranny and socialism and communism. And so we've got to get this right, and we've especially got to get it right on May 3rd.
And we got to get a lot of truth out there. And I did it. I didn't F-bomb one time, so I'm not fired today.
Yeah.
And I don't think I had any hot mic moments.
There was an S word, but we're not going to count that.
So anyway, thank you all for joining. Come back next week and tell your friends.